Yes. Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is. Welcome back. We have a search warrant unsealed. We've been waiting for this since the raid took place in Fulton County, and now it is here. We're going to go through it in detail. We have a name that is familiar if you've been here before. Kurt Olsen, the guy who was on the Kerry Lake trial, also named in the affidavit. Very curious here, and we're going to explain and connect the dots. What was he doing there? And what will the consequences of that be? Of course, Fulton County got raided and maybe hundreds of boxes, 650 boxes, now in possession. And the affidavit explains explicitly why they wanted those boxes. And so we'll unpack all of that here together, go through all the details and see what's happening. Then we've got some Minnesota updates as well, because there's a new report out from Alpha News. There's a state rep in Minnesota who is saying that there is voter fraud happening there, and that the Secretary of State is giving out illegal orders to not disclose these records to state representatives. We've got judges today that are rejecting the DOJ's lawsuit. Of course, Harmeet Dillon saying, we'd like to look at your voter rolls, but a Michigan judge is saying, no, you can't look at those records because of a bunch of technicalities. We'll show what a ridiculous thing it is. And then the SAVE Act, we have a Republican, wait till you hear who it is, who is not going to be supporting the SAVE Act. And she is going to explain why. But there's still momentum making its way through the Senate. And so it's going to be a great stream. Thanks for being here. Thanks for subscribing and all the things. Hopefully the tubes are connected and we're coming in loud and clear all across the fruited plains of the interwebs, and it looks like we're live. So let's get to it, because we've got some good updates today. Search warrant unsealed in Fulton County. The FBI raided Fannyland, and now we're getting to see why they did it and what they presented to a judge in order to get the judge to sign off on it. And there was an interesting rub. If you remember here, we had two search warrants. We watched the body camera, and they were there. Then they went back to go make a little bit of a change. Then they came back and got the boxes. And now you see we've got the notice. The judge said, yep, unseal the records on this particular event and make it public. We've got it now here. Now, it's a little different than what we normally see. Normally, when you get a criminal investigation, you get the search warrant executed, usually leads to an arrest of a person. And then the search warrant that was a part of the criminal case is unsealed because the criminal charges are unsealed and the whole docket gets, lightened up. We get to look inside. But this is not what's happening here because we don't have an active criminal charge yet. Not yet. And so this is actually Rob L. Pitts, the county commissioner, chairman of something. He was out suing to get the records back. And so this is a different civil action, not the criminal case, but they went and complained to some judge in Georgia and said, Judge, we need those files back because of a bunch of things, which we talked about yesterday. And so they are now providing notice to the court. They're saying, all right, Judge, here's what you wanted. We've got two documents. You ordered us on the 7th to unseal these matters. They gave them until today to do it, and they've done it. We've got two of them. We've got attachment number 1 is a redacted affidavit in this one case ending in 0158. And another case is attachment 2, another redacted affidavit. So we've got both of them, but they're largely the same. We have not much difference between the two. And I've got them both queued up so you can see. First one is ending in 158 over here. And then the other one, as you can see here, is ending in 0177. We're going to stick with the 0177 one for the read. It's 23 pages. The other one is 22 pages. And I'll show you exactly the one little paragraph that they shoved on in there. And so we're happy to hear about this. And a name of somebody is going to come up. You may remember this person's face right here. Well, he's mentioned. We'll come back to him in just a moment. But here is the rest of the docket. So it's Pitt versus United States. We're in the Northern District of Georgia. Today on the 10th, boom, we had the submission of the unsealed search warrant affidavit. Now, I wanted to also pay close attention to this because we see some of the worst who are coming in here to squeeze in on this docket and try to muck the whole case up. And if you just go over here and do a little Control F and type in Norm, oh, look at that. Norm Eisen, right? One of the Democrat super lawyers, in my opinion, a guy who is very useful in rigging elections and creating nonprofits and 501c3s and 501c4s and state democracy defenders and all the things. Well, he's in on the case. And the other guy that we mentioned is also Lowell, Abby Lowell. Turns out both of their applications to come in here pro hoc vice so they can squeeze in here have been accepted and granted. And so Abby Lowell, of course, we know, same guy representing Dans les Mains. Same guy who represented Hunter Biden. They're all freaked out. Democrats are bringing out their gutter actors to come in on this case because they know they're in big trouble. So let's get to the affidavit. As you can see, United States District Court, Northern District of Georgia. The FBI agent that we'll be spending some time with today is called Hugh Raymond Evans. Man, shout out to Hugh. He's a special agent, and they're there to investigate this property right here, Office of the Clerk of the Court. Now, contrast that with the other search warrant and see here, they didn't actually have that in there. So 5600 Campbellton, Fulton, or Fairborn in Fairborn, Georgia was the original address. They went back and just kind of modified it. And they're like, oh, we actually need to go to the clerk of the court. It's a giant building. All sorts of different government entities are there. So as we saw in the body cam, they went back and said, okay, this specific location as well, just out of an abundance of caution. We saw a lot of this before. Saw the signature of Hugh Raymond Evans. Also saw that the judge named Catherine M. Salinas, a magistrate judge, so kind of a lower level judge, like a judicial, like assistant, some people might call it, but not an actual federally appointed judge, a judge in training, as many say, out of Atlanta, Georgia. And then they attach the affidavit. Now, we saw this before. They're there to search this location and get all those boxes, and they did. And when they were there, this is what they were looking for. And we're happy about this because we've been battling for a long time to get these records, and we'll see exactly why they needed to do this criminal search warrant execution. One, we want all records retaining and relating to the October 12th date, 2020, for violations of these crimes. We want all physical ballots from the 2020 election, including not limited to absentee ballots, voting ballots, provisional ballots, in-person election day ballots, emergency ballots, damaged, destroyed ballots, you spilled coffee on it, duplicated ballots, anything that you used to cast a vote in 2020, we want it. We also want all tabulator tapes for every voting machine, every single stinking machine, even if they use the same serial number, even if you shove them in closets, we don't care. All of it. We want the zero tapes. We want the opening tapes, which we know these machines were not zeroed out. We know that they were not checked during the opening. So you start to count your ballots and you don't even know what the starting number is. Are you starting at 0 or are you starting at 2000 Joe Biden votes? Closing tapes. When you're done calculating, you close it, sign it out. I did this job. I'm the person who certified it. You seal it up, put it in the delivery bag. All of it, they're getting. Tabulator printed tape from voting machines, everything used back in 2020. They also want the ballot images. Once they're scanned, there's a file, right, that were produced during the original ballot count beginning November 3rd, and any other ballot images that were created from ballot scanning during 2020. We also want all voter rolls, absentee, which we think are totally fraudulent, early voting, and in person. Any other voter roll that indicates voters and to whom an absentee ballot was issued, who got it, from whom an absentee ballot was received, and who participated in advance voting or election day voting. We want everything. Now, this warrant also authorizes a review of electronic storage media. So hard drives, any electronically stored info that was copied pursuant to this, anything that's connected to what we want, any fruits and instrumentalities described in this warrant we're going to get. The review of this data may be conducted by any government personnel. They were all there. Pursuant to the warrant, the FBI may deliver a complete copy of the seized or the copied data back to the government, and they can look at it for their independent review, all signed off on by the judge. Now, here is the affidavit. This part is new. I, Hugh Raymond Evans, Special Agent of the FBI, being first duly sworn, hereby depose and state as follows. I am an FBI Special Agent assigned to Atlanta, where I work in the Public Corruption Squad. Dun dun. I have been a special agent with the FBI since December 6, 2020. I entered FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia. Now, while stationed there, I got extensive training. Currently assigned in Atlanta to the Public Corruption and Civil Rights Squad. Now, prior to being employed by the FBI, I was a licensed attorney. Hey, in good standing by the Alabama State Bar, and I was in private practice for approximately 4 years. An FBI lawyer. Wow. So the facts set forth in this affidavit are based upon my personal observations, maybe based on my training and experience, information obtained from other people, reports, business records, recorded conversations, communications with other individuals who have personal knowledge of the events, investigative files. And since this affidavit is being submitted for the purpose limited of establishing probable cause, I have not included every detail in here, okay? There's going to be a lot more in order to bring this case to conclusion. But unless specifically indicated otherwise, this is all related in substance here. So a lawyer, and they're going to do everything they can to undermine every single person in this case. And now they have a lawyer who's an FBI agent too. Wow. Based on my training and experience, this is what I believe has happened. There's probable cause moving forward. Court, of course, has jurisdiction. A court of competent jurisdiction, and so we're bringing this to you in the Northern District of Georgia. Here we go. They write, this is why there's probable cause to go get the ballots, all 650 plus of them. Following the November 3rd presidential election, there were many allegations of electoral impropriety, we remember, related to the voting process and the ballot counting in Fulton County, Georgia. Some of those allegations have been disproven, while some of those allegations have been substantiated, including through admissions by Fulton County themselves. So this warrant is part of an FBI criminal investigation into whether any of the improprieties were intentional acts that violated federal criminal laws. And the FBI criminal investigation, where did it come from? From a referral sent by this guy right here, Kurt Olsen. He returns, presidentially appointed Director of Election Security and Integrity. And you remember Kurt Olsen because he was the guy who was there in Arizona fighting for Kari Lake when they rigged that election and stole it from her, which we all covered here extensively, watching people stand outside the doors on Election Day trying to get in to vote, and they couldn't do it. Because Bill Onesie Twosie Gates here in Maricopa, Bill Onesie Twosie, got a couple hours, took a couple days. And then he said that it was just a paper mistake. Oops, we selected letter, and it should have been A2 paper, or whatever the paper was. And then, of course, Kari Lake has the election stolen from her. We get Katie Hobbs, who can't even put together a sentence without sounding like Barbie. So Kurt Olsen is back. And, of course, the president appointed him to investigate a lot of these things, and we know he knows where the bodies are buried because he had to go through it. And if you recall, this is what this gentleman sounded like, just to take a quick trip down memory lane so we know who we're talking about here in a minute. This is from the trial of Kari Lake. And on stand right now is Clay Parikh, same guy who's also been pounding the table about Fulton County. And we looked at some of his receipts yesterday that showed all the Fulton County machines had the same serial number at the bottom. That's weird. How can these machines be different if they all have the same serial number? Doesn't make any sense. So here's just a little bit of an exchange so we have some context for who Kurt Olsen is. Some audio will be good.
Determine on your physical examination of these ballots, your experience both in the industry as a certified forensic hacking investigator, your CISSP, your skills with, I believe you called it IRAP, is that?
It's IRA, that's the acronym that does it. There are different, and this is specifically for technical risk and assessment. This is one of the issues when I work for the voting system test labs to get all the vendors. I've dealt with over 7 of them to my memory, right? None of them performed it. The labs didn't perform it. I eventually convinced one lab to do this because this is vital to when you're doing system testing, let alone security system testing. And this applies not just to electronic voting systems. This is to all information systems, all technology. These are standard engineering principles.
Is there any way you could be wrong about a 19-inch image being placed on 20-inch paper?
Weird.
No, sir. I give the technical options that are there. There are 2 ways that this can happen. And based on this system, and the controls in place, this could not have been an accident. There are only two options. It would take further investigation, further forensic examination for me to determine exactly which one it was.
Okay, so this is the same pattern in practice that we see all across America. You have election officials who are just doing the dumb protester thing, just like we see in Minneapolis and Minnesota. They walk out, oh, I don't know how this happened. I'm just a confused person. It was just a mistake. They're not just innocent mistakes. They're orchestrated attacks. And in this case, you've got Arizona officials who are bumbling around like morons. Oh, you don't know what paper size it was. Oops. There's no intentionality. No, we didn't just try to muck up the entire election on election day intentionally. It was just a mistake because we're so stupid. Same thing is now going to be the crux of this investigation in Fulton and everywhere else. Was there enough evidence to show intent, indicia that this is more than just an innocent mistake or we're just incompetent? It's bureaucracy and nobody can explain it. No, it's organized and intentional. That was Kurt Olsen getting into it with Clay Parikh, and now we're back to the docs. Here is Kurt Olsen now sent a referral over. And here we go. They say U.S. code and law requires election officers to retain election records for 22 months following an election for federal office. The statute and the retention requirement applies to everything, all records, all papers that come into possession at any time. If you violate this statute, that alone is a misdemeanor. Okay, that's it. That enough could be a crime. Then they continue. They say, for continuing, now another section, subsection 2 of 20511, makes it a crime to knowingly and willfully deprive the residents of a state of a fair and impartially conducted election process, just like we had in Arizona, just like Fulton had, many other places. And if they try to screw this up, if they do this by the procurement, by the casting, by the tabulation of ballots that are known by the persons to be false, fictitious, or fraudulent where the election is held, if you do that, violation of that statute is a felony. So if illegal ballots come in that are fraudulent and you just go, oh, just count them, you don't just get to say I'm a dumb election official. You have a duty to not accept those ballots. And if you're complicit in it, you're guilty of a crime. So this investigation has presently focused on the following deficiencies or defects with the November 3rd election and the tabulation and the votes thereof. And look at this list. A, 1, the tabulator machines used by Fulton County are designed to create and save a scanned image of each ballot. Put it through the machine, it counts the votes, it scans it, saves it as a file. Fulton County, this is being presented to a judge by the DOJ, by an FBI agent, who's a former lawyer, by the way. They admitted that it does not have scanned images of all the 528,777 ballots that were counted during the original count, or the 527,000 ballots that were counted during the recount. Two different numbers there, almost 1,000 apart. And they reference us to footnote 1. They say, oh, there were recounts. Rob, they recounted this a million times. Well, yeah, there were 3 of them, 3 recounts. And for the purposes of this affidavit, we use the following terms. Original count is election night and the following day, where they counted ballots that just kept coming in because they needed to make up the difference. Trump only lost this by like 11,700 votes. So they had a water main break in Fulton County, which was not real, and then kept counting the votes. That's 1. Then there's a risk limiting audit. That's the second count. That was a hand recount that was completed mid-November 2020. Then there is another recount that refers to that one completed by the machines in early December 2020. So 3 recounts, fraud all over the place. He says, we don't care. You're getting charged. So Fulton County has confirmed from Fannieland that during the recount of the votes, some ballots were scanned multiple times. Ballot images made available in response to public records requests show ballots with unique markings duplicated within the ballot images, right? So you scan a ballot and it looks like a normal ballot, but there's a little coffee stain on it. And you say, all right, well, scan it, it's fine. It's not destroyed. We don't need to, take it over. It's got a little mark over there. And you look through it and you say, wait a minute. Why are there 2 ballots with the same exact coffee stain on it? It looks exactly the same. or an errant mark. Okay, somebody, little Sharpie, doing this, got a little Joe Biden hand, put the little mark on there. You see it, it's duplicated. How come? Did you count it twice? Did the vote in the bubble count twice? And during the risk limiting audit, the second count, or one of the other counts, auditors counting the votes by hand reported vote tallies for batches that were inconsistent with actual votes within the batch. How could that possibly happen? They're literally looking at them, marking a tally. The tallies don't match the ballots. Are they liars or are they idiots? The state's Performance Review Board also reported that the Secretary of State, that's Brad Raffensperger, and his investigators even confirmed that. There are inaccurate batch tallies from the risk limiting audit. Great job on the audit, morons. Can't even count. Footnote 2. Following the election, the Georgia State Election Board convened a bipartisan performance review board to review the election and found they have no performance at all. D. Auditors assisting the risk limiting audit. They also reported counting purported absentee ballots. That had never been creased or folded at all, as would be required for the ballot to be mailed to the voter and for the ballot to be returned in the sealed envelope, because it wasn't mailed. It requires the voter's signature. You can just tell, put it in the ballot. It's in the mail conveyor belt. Then it goes into the mailman's bag. Then it goes into the truck. Then it goes into the mailbox. You can see, right? There's going to be physical impressions on that transaction, but not on these ballots though, because they were just printed and they shoved them in. So then on the day of the deadline to report the recount results, what happened? Well, Fulton County reported a recount. And the recount was 511,343 ballots. Wait a minute, what? That means that it was missing 17,000 ballots fewer than the original. Weird. And the margin of error was only 11,700. So where did those ballots go, Fanny and Brian, Kemp and Brad Raffensperger? The following day, Fulton County then reported a total, they put the numbers back in there, 527,925 ballots counted. Just kind of forgot about those. They had to, verify that. Now, if these deficiencies were the result of intentional action, it would be a violation of federal law. And they say it's not intentional. They just say we're just dumb. No, these are just little mistakes. We don't know what happened. But it would be a violation of federal law, regardless of whether failure to retain the records or the deprivation of a fair tabulation was outcome determinative for any particular election or race. And that was their big escape hatch, remember. Well, there's no voter fraud. We go, oh yeah, there is. There's a lot of it. Oh, well, what we meant was there's no widespread voter fraud. We said, oh, yes, there is. Look at all over the place. We had it in multiple states. We covered it all here. Then they said, well, there's no evidence of widespread voter fraud that would impact the outcome of the election. And then you said, well, yeah, actually there is. In Georgia, there's over 11,000, over 12,000 fraudulent votes that are in contest. Well, that's okay. That's one state. So you got to go find another state, and then that's what they landed on. And of course, the clock kept ticking. Joe Biden walks into the White House. Now, as set out more fully, this warrant seeks seizure of these records to include the paper ballots, the ballot images, absentee ballot envelopes, anything currently retained, we want. And here's more. Following the 2020 election, Brad Raffensperger's office made available ballot images of absentee ballots cast in the 2020 election. Footnote 3. Atlanta Journal-Constitution explained it. Now, as it continued, another Georgia resident called this person was a chemical engineer and taught at a technical college. Sharp dude. That person began conducting research and analysis on elections following November 3rd. And as part of that analysis, this witness reviewed images of the released absentee voter ballot images. He discovered that the number of ballot images from the recount did not reconcile with the total number of ballots cast. The numbers don't match. That's a problem. So then he went and filed a complaint with the Georgia State Election Board. That was on July 8th, 2022. And he said, during the recount of the 2020 election, there were 17,800 missing ballot images from Brad Raffensperger's website. He filed another complaint again in which 36 errors were identified within the batch tallies of an absentee ballot from the risk limiting audit, which were confirmed by Brian Kemp in a letter dated November 17th. And errors included duplicated or misidentified batch entries and incorrect batch entries reflecting 100% of the vote for one candidate. 36 different errors, all articulated and admitted by Brian. Now, when a complaint is filed with the state election board, investigators from the secretary's office may be assigned to investigate the complaint, assisting the election board in the adjudication. But this person's initial complaint was in fact investigated by the Secretary of State's office. They opened up a case number and everything. The investigation was presented in 2024. Look at this. Joe Biden's already wrecked the country. Now we're finally getting some answers. The state election board had a hearing. They issued a letter of reprimand to Fulton County Fannie Willis in lieu of a referral to the Georgia AG. They sought to enter a memorandum of understanding. They said, let's all agree to monitor 2024. And if we can't agree to monitor 2024 so we can fix this stuff, then we're going to refer it over to the Georgia AG for charges. That's just person one. And witness two is the next person who comes out. And let me just pause here for a quick moment because I was pulling up documents last night and I actually found, I think, part of the materials from the person that we were just talking about right now. Huge document, but let me just skim through this so you can see what I believe, some of what we're talking about. So this is a 364-page document, and this is an affidavit that was presented here. This might be the same guy. Of course, his name is being redacted. It's a criminal case, but all of the ballot images were here. So let me just show you some of what we're talking about in this document. Scrolling, my apologies. I want you to see kind of the scope and the scale of this. So these are some of the ballots that they're looking at. And he submitted all of these. He's pulling them off. He does his analysis, whether he's a chemical engineer or not. And he's scanning all these materials. And in the letter, in this document, he's also, the PDF is even wonking out because there's so many pages of materials. These are all the ballots. Somebody's going through and scanning these things aggressively. And the Brian Kemp letter is also in here somewhere, but you get the gist of it. All right. All of this was being investigated. They did nothing with it. All right. So back to the story. Witness 2 comes out. He is a Republican appointed member of the Georgia state election boards. We got a chemical engineer now and somebody who's on the board. He also was an obstetrician prior to serving on the state election board. She served on the board since February or March prior to the Senate runoff, had not worked on an election either. And as a member of the board, she's also tasked with listening to investigator reports to decide if there's evidence of a violation of election law. Now, if the board determines that evidence exists, the board decides what we need to do. So witness 2 got the complaint. She then requested the ballot images, probably resembling a lot of what we saw right there, from the Secretary of State. Of course, the board is comprised of 5 members. 1 is appointed by the governor, 1's appointed by Georgia Senate, 1's appointed by Georgia House, 1 is a Democrat, 1 is a Republican. Witness 2 on the election board, she said the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, would not give the ballot images. Said, you have to come down here to my office and look at them in person. So she did. For the next several weeks, she went down there to Brad Raffensperger's office to review the ballot images, a lot of what we just saw. She began reviewing these images after the May 2024 Georgia election board hearing. Whole country's already wrecked. Witness 2 was not certain whether the images she reviewed were from the election night or from the recount. No one knows. She stated that they gave her a laptop. They had 2 flash drives in it. There were 2 notes next to the laptop. One contained her name and a password to access this. And it said, don't remove the flash drive from the computer. The other note stated, hi, lady. Vince must have miscounted. She's getting the note from Brad Raffensperger's people, like on a sticky note or something by this computer. Vince must have miscounted. Oops. Goo. Only 15,000 ballot images, short of 17,000 by 2310. So our numbers are totally off. Now, witness 2 did not have a copy of the note, but wrote what the note said. Then she stated she noticed several things about the ballot image files right away. She noticed the secure hash algorithm or the SHA files were all missing. Now, she explained that every ballot image or a TIFF file, you've opened those TIFF files, they're obnoxious, should produce a corresponding SHA file. The SHA file guarantees the TIFF file has not been modified. It validates it. She stated that she had no prior expertise in reviewing these things until she got on the board, learned how it worked, went to go look for it. Then she said that the missing files, the SHA files, were a red flag. Seems like someone may have manipulated the data because there's no file that's validating what's inside the TIFF. Because you can open up the TIFF and manipulate it. Just open it up in Photoshop, change a couple things. But then if you revalidate it, if you do that, then the SHA, which is like a hash of that file, won't match, and it will show somebody manipulated the doc. So witness 2 stated the files were a red flag, and she believed that the removal of the SHA files was an intentional act by someone. Why are they not paired up so you can validate what you're looking at? She stated that while she was reviewing the images, she also noticed modification dates that were associated with the files. Well past the time frame of the 2020 election. Why would that happen? She observed at least one file with the date modified January 11, 2024. That's weird. The election was a long time ago. Along with others that were also modified before January 11, 2024. Who's opening the files and changing things and then deleting the SHA? Those files should never have been touched. Modified, not accessed, right? So witness number 3 is another witness. New person enters the game. The current House-appointed state election board member also confirmed there were missing ballot images. 2 people on the election board say so. Weird. And I wonder if Jake Tapper will report this as there's no evidence. Well, there's 2 witnesses who are on the board who went to go down and look at the files firsthand and are evidencing a cover-up. Witness 3's knowledge about the 2020 election came from her current role. She's on the election board, not firsthand. Now, she was not aware of a clerical or technical issue. Is there any explanation for why we don't have images? No. If there was, it should be documented. Just like they did with Epstein's prison cell video. Apparently deleted it. Witness 3 stated that the image acts as a receipt for the ballot, so we can verify that it came in. Now, witness 3 also said to remedy the missing ballot images are needed to conduct a hand recount. We actually need to see the physical ballots, right? If we don't have the images, then we can't count. So then we need to go look at the physical ballots to do the hand recount. Now, this guy, who was the director, witness 4, who was the director of elections for the Georgia Secretary of State in 2020, he was not aware of physical ballots not matching the number of images. Did you know the numbers don't add up? He's like, what? He said a discrepancy like that would be problematic. Yeah, I mean, they should count, like it should match exactly. That's why you do the audits and you count so that you have an accurate number. It's not like a guesstimation. It's called an election. But did not know if anyone went back and checked that, because why would they check? Because they didn't want to. Well, witness number 4 said during the hand count, they did not audit for issues like image discrepancies. He said, well, the images are just duplicates. We don't care. He said it would be more concerning if there were discrepancies between the physical ballots and the voter count. So that's what really matters. The images, I don't know. We didn't look into that, didn't explain it, but we were counting the ballots. So the concern is less about the images and more about the ballot and the voter count. So we did a recount. And following the recount, the Georgia Secretary of State, called Brad, he conducted a full recount of the ballots. And when they conducted the recount, they did not focus on the images. They took the actual ballots that were cast, counted them one by one, and made a total. Witness 4, who was running the elections, he stated, well, a possible explanation for the missing images, a memory card. Oh, no. And the memory card was not uploaded correctly. Oh, or it became corrupt. Just like the J6 pipe bomber cell phone records too. Oh no. And the Epstein video, everything gets corrupted. That would account for missing images. Yeah, it's weird. Bizarre how memory just doesn't work when it's in a government bureaucrat's hand. It's like, doesn't work. I don't know where they get it, but it doesn't function. So during a civil action in the Northern District of Georgia, Someone sued, and Fulton County Board of Registration and Elections, they admitted that they have not preserved the majority of ballot images. Didn't do it. From in-person voting or the original count. This is another impediment to ruling out non-criminal explanations for the activities during the elections. Can't look at the images. All of it's gone. Cover up underway. Witness 5 is another person. He's a data analyst. He reviewed and analyzed original ballot images and recount ballot images. He stated he downloaded the data from ZebraDuck, thought it was an open records request from Fulton County, but was not positive as he was not a part of acquiring the data. He got the data secondhand. But then he went through and used a computer program to review the ballot images to look for duplicates. It was looking for stray marks or other unique markings, like the coffee stain example, on a ballot that would allow it to be uniquely identified. Somebody draws a smiley face or something, marks their ballot uniquely. He would then review the duplicate to confirm. So he scans them all, matches them up, computer identifies some matches. He said that based on the total number of reported votes cast, there were images missing in the files that he reviewed. However, none of the missing images were from hand-completed ballots. The only missing ballot images were from in-person computer-generated ballots, which use the QR code. And this is another avenue of attack. Okay, you scan your ballot, it translates it. You can read your ballot. You know who you voted for. I voted for Trump. I voted for Perdue. I voted for Loeffler. I vote blah, blah. Then it translates it into a QR code. You can't read that QR code. You trust that it did a nice translation and it didn't swap your vote into Joe Biden. Then you take that QR code and that's how you cast your ballot. In the election, a QR code was generated to reflect the unique combination of all the votes. So in other words, if two voters made identical votes down the ballot, the QR codes would be identical if their ballots looked the same. Because these ballots were computer generated, he couldn't identify any of the duplicated ballots based on examining them for unique stray marks because the images weren't saved. You just have a little QR code. And what the attributes on the ballots were. So for that reason, images of in-person ballots were inconsequential to his review because he couldn't see them. So then he concluded that there were, in fact, duplicate ballots in the original count and in the recount. He also identified new ballots as well as test ballots in the recount that were not in the original count. In fact, he said that there were 17,852 digital images of ballots missing from the recount data that he reviewed. He concluded, yep, that's pretty suspicious. The missing image files were deleted at approximately the same time the duplicate votes began appearing in the system. Why would they do that? Because it's fraudulent. So based on his review, he concluded that what he observed could be intentional. But he says it was not partisan. He explained that by adding the duplicate ballots, Trump also got 10% more than average in Fulton County. Trump actually got a higher percent in Fulton, but it's still 40%, so it doesn't matter. You can give him 40% of the vote as long as 60% is going to the other guy. You just need to boost those numbers up. Joe Biden will overtake at those numbers all of the other more rural counties where they have lower vote quantities. This indicated to him that the introduction of duplicate ballots was intended to make the recount numbers match more than to affect the outcome of the election. So now they're trying to backfill the scam. Such an action would be an intentional tabulation of ballots in a false manner. So again, the crime may not even be the counting of the ballots on election night. The crime may be the second, or the third in this case, counting of the ballots in order to rig the numbers, to match the stolen election. Witness 6 is another person. Welcome. Former investigator at the Secretary of State's office, Brad Raffensperger, said that the complaint of duplicate ballots was investigated. In fact, we did it. We tallied the ballots by hand for the presidential race. We calculated it. Put a little, tick marks on here. No further investigation was conducted, obviously, once the investigators learned that 40% of the duplicated ballots cast a vote for Trump. They said, oh, see, Trump's getting some votes. So we're just looking for like 100% Biden votes. Trump got some, so it like matches the result. So stop looking. So they concluded, no, there's no intentional misconduct. That's so ridiculous because obviously you see this every election night. Okay, you look at the counties and you see what are the rates of return in those various counties. And you say, well, Trump's only getting 40% of the vote in Fulton. In order to close the gap, Trump's going to need to get 51% of the vote, right? Or whatever the numbers are. You monitor those completely. As long as Joe Biden, who was losing at the time of the water main break, as long as they can just close that gap, just keep pumping those Fulton ballots at 60% margins, yeah, he's over 20%. Gonna win. Just keep pumping those numbers up. So additionally, back to witness 5, he said, yeah, we found similar issues of ballots being introduced during the recount to make the total numbers match those obtained during the original counts. So the cover-up is as much of the crime. And they've got evidence of the cover-up. Now, in its response to the Secretary of State, Fulton County Director, who took over following 2020, admitted that duplication of ballots may have occurred, but said if it did, it's just human error. It's just a mistake. Oops. We are just human. Cut us some slack. Moving on to the tabulator tapes. Now, tabulator tapes are printed from each voting machine once the machines are closed. You're done. Spit out a summary. The tape indicates how many votes were received for each candidate on that particular machine and how many total ballots were counted. Nice details. Witness number 3 on the board stated that one issue that impacts accountability is when tabulator tapes are not signed, in addition to election officials not preserving the ballot images. And just take this like in any criminal case again. What if a cop arrests you and transports your blood and then spits out a result that says, oh, you're drunk as hell. You got a DUI. You say, wait a minute. Who did the testing on my sample, my blood sample? Well, we don't know. Nobody signed it. Wait a minute. What? Yeah, it went to the lab. Somebody processed it. We got a number. Okay, but who signed the tape? Who signed the result? Nobody. Nobody did. All right. Do you have the sample saved so that I can go test it? No, we don't. But you're guilty. It's like a joke. Your case would be dismissed and the judge would laugh at the prosecutor and probably sanction them for bringing such a corrupt case. But for our elections, no problem at all. Just count it. Witness 3 said ultimately that the tabulator tapes should match the number of physical ballots because it was a machine that counted it. The tabulator tape is what is called the holy grail for the final count. Like, why do we use machines? So that we get accurate counts, not guesstimates by the number specifically. Can we see the report of the machine? No. Georgia rules and regulations require the tabulation tapes be printed from each machine at poll closing. It's the law. The tapes must then be signed by a poll manager and 2 witnesses. That's how important it is. Now, since at least 2003, Clay Parikh, the gentleman you just heard from earlier on the show when he was being interviewed or giving testimony to Kurt Olsen, he's worked in the cybersecurity field in both the private sector and government agencies for a long time. Since 2008, he's done security and performance testing of the voting machines. Due to his background in voting machine security and performance, Parikh is often asked to review data related to technical questions related to voting machines, just like he did with Kari Lake. He is currently a special government employee, a temporary officer, or employee in the executive branch, working there for up to 130 days. Let's go. We love Clay. Parikh reviewed the tapes of the tabulator images and related documents he obtained from an open records request. And he was asked by Witness 7 to review the tabulator tapes and to analyze them. Witness 7 is a part of another group, Election Oversight Group, and they drafted a report about this fraud. Parikh, he determined that closing tabulator tapes were missing for some of the machines. And of the 138 closing tapes that were provided by Fulton in response to his records requests, only 16 tabulators accounted for 315,000 ballots. And in his review, he identified one tabulator that was used to close out 15 tabulator machines from 12 different locations. Like, how fraudulent can you get? Oh, we closed it out. Just use the tape. That same tape used in 15 different locations, 12 different locations, 15 different machines. In addition, the poll closing time and the reported printed times on several closing tabulator tapes were close enough that Clay believes someone manipulated the times on all of the reports. Somebody just went through afterwards, is what it sounds like, and just said, oh crap, we forgot to close these out. Went back in, close, 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 close. All of them right back to each other, maybe even remotely. He believed this was manipulation. He also believed that this showed that the memory cards were removed from the tabulator, oh, there it is, and put in another tabulator to print out the closing tabulator tapes. And again, who did this, right? In a criminal case, you have a chain of custody. One person is doing this, you sign off on it, give it to another cop, he transports it, signs off on it, puts it into evidence, he signs off on it, goes into impound, somebody else takes it out, they sign off on it. That's why we have the signatures. Parikh also reviewed the protective counter number on the tabulator tapes. The protective counter is similar to an odometer on a vehicle. It counts the number of ballots tabulated on that machine for the machine's entire lifetime. If you compare the protective counter at the start of the election and at the end of the election, and you compare that change in the protective counter to the closing tapes, you can do that to validate and ensure the integrity of the election. But his analysis further revealed that the protective counters on at least 5 tabulator tapes from the same unit were identical, and that some of the reported ballots scanned exceeded the protective counter number. Somebody rolled back the odometer on the machines. This indicated to Parikh that no ballots were ever scanned on these machines, and that the numbers generated from those ballots were done so by placing an unencrypted memory card into the unit to generate the closing tape. This would have allowed the opportunity for the tabulation to be tampered with. Now, all of the closing tapes that Parikh provided in his review, based on the poll opening times and the locations, appear to be from in-person early voting locations, of course. Witness 6 also said, the tabulator tapes are specific to a particular scan of ballots by a specific machine. It matches like a fingerprint. For instance, at issue here are the tabulator tapes from November 3rd and the original count. The original tapes are not used during the recount because ballots are scanned again, right? You've got one election done and closed. You got to do it again. You're not going back and using the old stuff. Scan them again in a different machine. Now, in the recount, a report is generated from the new ballots, and that's compared to the original ballots. Witness 6, though, stated the tabulator tapes from the original count are not compared to the reports from the recount. The tapes are not what are mattering. It's the ballots are what mattered. And I think Witness 6 was with the government. Now, during the Fulton County risk limiting audit, which was a hand count, Witness 6 believed all the ballots were accounted for. And during the standard risk limiting audit, only a small sample of ballots are counted to verify the results, right? Risk limiting audit. They don't count them all again. It's just like pull a couple out. But in the 2020 election, all ballots were audited because it was only 11,700 margin vote. During the December 9th meeting before the board, Fulton County stated that the tabulator tapes that accounted, they even admit it, for the 315,000 ballots were not properly signed. Brad Raffensperger also stated in the media that he considered the unsigned tabulator tapes, oh, Brad, just simple administrative oversight. Wow. So no one can go to jail because we're just idiots. Yeah, right. We know. You're criminals. When a voter elects to vote by absentee ballot, we also have these pristine ballots. And I'm wondering if you can see some of that in this list of documents here, because you can see like creases in these things. Let's go to 300. Yeah, Fannie Willis, of course, Democrat. She gets voted for. Can you see any of the creases here that you should see, right? If these are mailed ballots. Don't know if these are exactly mailed ballots, but here's what they're analyzing, talking about pristine ballots. When a voter elects to vote by absentee, the ballot is mailed. When the ballot is returned, either by mail or Dropbox, it must be sealed inside 2 envelopes with a properly authenticated signature, which are never checked. An absentee ballot must be folded to fit into the envelope. A pristine ballot, as described in detail below, is an absentee ballot that has no indications it's ever been folded or mailed at all, like a normal ballot would. And as it pertains to pristine ballots, Witness 3 stated that absentee ballots look different than in-person ballots. She said there's no reason to have a pristine absentee ballot with no folds. She was unsure if provisional ballots get folded or not, but said they look different from absentee ballots. And probably not, right? Provisional ballots, let's say you don't have your ID or something, or you go to vote, but you forgot, oh, I requested a mail-in ballot. So they mailed you a ballot. You show up at a local polling place on election day. They look you up. They say, oh, we mailed you a ballot. We can't give you 2 ballots. So you say, oh, I'll vote provisional, fill it out provisionally. Then if 2 ballots come in from your ID, one of them gets voided. Those probably not folded. But the absentees, of course, you're voting absentee. You're not there. That's why you need one. Witness 1 also included in his complaints allegations that extra ballots were introduced during the count of the absentee ballots. Witness 8, new person, was a poll manager back during 2020, had been a poll manager for 25 years, and she was asked to work during the risk limiting audit where they recounted everything. And in Fulton, due to the election being so close, they decided we have to do a full hand recount, so they did. Witness 8 was a part of that. She received boxes of ballots that had broken security seals, obviously. When she asked about the security seals, someone, an unknown individual, said, oh, shut up. Doesn't matter. Yeah, it's like if you get a blood sample drawn out of your body and the cops just like breaking the seal, like pouring in some Everclear, sealing it back up. Don't worry about it. Crime lab tech goes, what is this? Witness 8 recalled receiving one batch of ballots that contained 110 ballots. She said that she noticed quickly something seemed off here, a little different. Of the 110 ballots, 107 had the exact same votes for each candidate on the ballot because they just came out of the printer, probably still warm. These ballots were also pristine and that they had not been folded. She said that the 107 were labeled as absentee ballots, but they were too clean to be absentee ballots in her opinion. The texture of the ballots also felt different from all of the other ballots, and all of the bubbles were filled in the same. She said that she also got a stack of 60 ballots that were later labeled as having come from a senior living center, where they just went around to grandma and grandpa, and they're like, remember how much you love Joe Biden, grandma? What? Just fill this out right here. She believed these ballots should have been folded as well, but they weren't. Witness 8 also observed suspicious handling of ballots. She observed what she believed to be stacks of ballots on a table that was outside of the security camera view, of course, but she was too far away to view that, and if anything, couldn't see what was printed on the ballots. She said that she did not know where the ballots came from or what their purpose was. Witness 9 is another new person, was working with Witness 8 at the polls at the same table during the audit. She says that I recall the 107 ballots just like Witness 8 did. She also says the ballots look like the selections had already been made with a stamp. Says that both of them would have a better recollection of the 107 identical ballots. But Witness 9 stated she also saw 2 females who were re-voting ballots. Witness 10, the then director of elections of Fulton County, told her that they had to re-vote because the original ballot was not being accepted by the machine. So they have to copy it over onto a new ballot. Witness 9 said the paper that they were using was different. She said that she did not know why these votes were being re-voted now and not during the original count. That's a real strange thing to do. During your audit to see whether the original count is valid, you are changing the count or reconstituting votes. Don't know if they're changing. Don't know why they're reduplicating it, but the first time that ballot went through, the machine got it. Now you got to change it. Now, had the ballots been audited by Witness 8 and 9, if they had been duplicated ballots of damaged or unscanned ballots, they would have been marked like that. Okay, it would have said, oh, we already duplicated this. This ballot has a coffee stain spilled all over the place, so we can't use it. Mark it as invalid, copy it over to a new one, and then process it. But Georgia law requires that. And in fact, if you're going to duplicate ballots, you have to have witnesses there to do it. And a duplicate ballot needs to be clearly marked as a duplicate ballot, and the original ballot also needs to be retained. Witness 4, who was the Secretary of State election director in 2020, stated that in Fulton County, there would likely be thousands of different ballot combinations throughout the county, explaining that if a worker wanted to take an absentee ballot and change the vote, they would have to produce another ballot. He said if someone was able to get a hold of a blank ballot, then yeah, that could be possible. But he did not think it was feasible that someone could tamper with absentee ballots due to how many people are in the room. It's like just tons of people, no one can do it. He said it would take a tremendous amount of organization and secrecy. He said it may be possible, though, for someone to quickly introduce one ballot, but anything on a large scale would be barely possible. But they asked him some more questions. However, witness 4 stated there is no way to determine if someone within the process of counting the votes substituted fictitious ballots for real-life ballots if the ballot totals match the number of voters accounted for in absentee ballots, right? You got 100,000 absentee ballots. As long as you leave with 100,000 absentee ballots, you're good. The numbers match. Now, the content of those ballots can be swapped by somebody inside the system. On the other hand, he explained that if 100 extra ballots were introduced without removing real ballots, that would be caught. Because we have reconciliation, you can't just add ballots. You also have to take them out because you'll screw up your counts. Witness 4, not aware of any discrepancies between voters counted and ballots counted in total. He says, well, you know, every election we have pristine absentee ballots, like they come in, no folds at all. These ballots would be generated by a vote review panel. Every time they adjudicated a damaged ballot, they would just print out a new one. Obviously, the new one is not going to be mailed. They got this bad ballot from somebody with all the votes. They just copy and paste those over. The new ballot would be the ballot created and used to count the vote. But witness 6 was also an investigator over in Georgia. Brad Raffensperger's office has been there since 2009. Witness 6 received and investigated multiple complaints about the election. Said that if someone were to sneak in fraudulent ballots, the number of ballots versus the number of people who voted would not be equal. Can't just shove them in. In addition, he did not know how someone would get a hold of a ballot because there were not extra ballots sitting around. He's like, where'd they even come from? He described how there were provisional ballots on election day, but all of those were accounted for. Now, the current Fulton County Commissioner, this guy, Witness 11, was a poll worker back in 2020. Prior to the election, she was asked to assist with logic and accuracy testing on the voting machines. LNA, not TNA. That's a different thing. Logic and accuracy. Logic and accuracy testing is pre-election testing where test ballots are tabulated to make sure the machines are working accurately. That's what Jenna Griswold from Colorado violated when she sent her SWAT team out to update the firmware passwords on the BIOS for all of the election machines days before the election occurred, meaning that the machines were tampered with and that they did not redo logic and accuracy validation in Colorado because it's fraudulent there too. While doing logic and accuracy testing, Witness 11 was assigned to the test ballot printing station where they printed the test ballots to run through the machines. She stated that there were stacks of paper to use as test ballots that were unsecured. Stated she could have printed any ballot she wanted. It's a free-for-all over there. She also witnessed individuals who were printing random ballots. She was able to rip up some of them. She was not sure the reason why they were printing all of these ballots, as all the test ballots had already been printed. And while she was in the warehouse conducting the tests, she stated voting machines with ballots came in from early voting locations at State Farm Arena, where the water main broke. Her belief was that these were actual voted ballots. She said that these ballots were removed from the machines and then were unattended for a period of time before they gathered in ballot cases. So you got to identify a bucket of ballots that you can pull and then another bucket of ballots that you can shove in. Witness 6 did not know how a person could possibly inject fraudulent absentee ballots into the process. But Witness 6 also stated that the Georgia Secretary of State's office also counted Fulton County numbers, and the number they got matched what was given to Fulton from Witness 6. Now, Seven Hills Strategy is another LLC. They were contracted by the Georgia Board to serve as an independent, nonpartisan monitor for pre-electoral processes in Fulton County leading up to 2020. Seven Hill published its report called the State Election Board Report, January 12, 21. Noted in the report was that Fulton County's absentee processes were extremely sloppy and replete with chain of custody issues, exactly our point about the DUI blood sample or any forensic evidence. The report found that during the risk limiting audit, there were chain of custody issues, there were ballots unattended, there were unsealed bags being used, and auditors not recording seal numbers on the ballot bags at all. Report also found that during the recount, ballots of different types had been mixed together for storage. This resulted in additional rounds of scanning during the recount because the wrong ballots were scanned on 2 separate occasions. Ballots were also stored in boxes with no precinct info. This became an issue when they had to retrieve particular batches that had been overlooked during the scanning. It further became an issue when they tried to ascertain which ballots had been missed because 2 scanners had both been named the same thing, ICC 16. It's a gong show up there. On August 18th, pursuant to another records request, the state election board appointed a performance review board. The duty of the board to make a thorough and complete investigation of the local election official with respect to all actions of the local election official regarding the technical competency in the maintenance and operation of the equipment, proper administration and oversight over registration and elections, and compliance with state law. So the board came up and said the following. Secretary of State investigators, that's Brad Raffensperger, who investigated complaints about 2020, had similar findings to ours. They said no evidence of fraud, dishonesty, or intentional misconduct, but persistent disorganization that made it difficult to get to the bottom of certain claims. Everyone's a moron, which means they're not intentional criminals. It's very convenient. Their job, of course, is to not be intentional morons, and they're put in these positions to not be dumb. And so maybe they should be held responsible for their crimes that are premised on negligence, essentially. Our review reaches a similar conclusion, said the Performance Review Board. We do not see any evidence of fraud, intentional misconduct, or large systemic issues that would have affected the result of the election, which is the stupid phrase we kept hearing over and over. But the election records now that are identified in Attachment B and sought by this warrant are currently located in a warehouse facility. The warehouse is the Fulton County Election Hub. And according to Fulton County, election records are still there. While election records are normally subject to destruction over 2 years, these are still under seal because Fulton County Superior Court said hold on to them. This is the paragraph that was inserted from the other search warrant. On the morning of January 28th, this court issued a search warrant for the premise of the Fulton County Election Hub. When I arrived at the warehouse to execute the warrant, says this FBI agent, officials allowed entry into the warehouse. They brought me to an access-limited portion of the warehouse, which was controlled by the clerk of the court. Election officials and court officials indicated that the election records identified in Attachment B are in that portion. So in an abundance of caution, given the distinct legal entities, okay, it's the same building, but 2 different people, I am seeking this additional warrant located for the office of the clerk of the court. FBI agent says. So in conclusion, he says, if these deficiencies were the result of intentional action, which obviously they were, not everybody is that dumb. The election records identified are evidence of violations of law. Seizure of election records would corroborate the analysis that evinces the election records were destroyed or tabulation of votes included materially false votes, either through duplicate scanning of specific ballots, injection of pristine ballots, or other methods described above. I request the court issue this search warrant so we can investigate. And I further request the court order that all papers in support of this application be sealed. They were unsealed today. These documents are talking about an ongoing criminal investigation that is neither public nor known, and we are not clear about who the targets of the investigation are. And so accordingly, there is good cause to seal these documents because their premature disclosure may jeopardize the investigation, giving the targets an opportunity to destroy or tamper with evidence, change patterns of behavior, notify their Confederates, and flee from prosecution. Nice affidavit signed here by Hugh Raymond Evans, special agent with the FBI. And we know that they already got a phone call about the raid because Rob Pitts said that explicitly. So maybe they already got a heads up. Maybe they've already manipulated some of the data before the raid even occurred. But as you can see, Lots of evidence here, multiple witnesses, evidence from people who are poll workers, people who have downloaded the files. We've got forensic experts like Clay Parikh, and the investigation will continue. But the man of the hour who initiated a lot of this is Kurt Olsen. And we remember him from Kerry Lake. And it turns out he's also getting information from the intel community. Politico reported this yesterday, coincidentally, before the search warrant was unsealed. They said Trump's top Stop the Steal lawyer now has access to sensitive U.S. intel as well, explaining Trump has directed top U.S. spy agencies to share sensitive intelligence with our boy, Kurt Olsen. The intelligence that top U.S. spy agencies are giving to him is meant to support a probe that he's leading into the rigged 2020 election. Many people leaking this over to Politico because they're freaked. They were granted anonymity for fear of retribution. They should be fired and put in jail for leaking classified info or sensitive materials. It's unclear whether there are any limits to the type of material that Olsen is getting access to. Two of the people familiar with Olsen's work specified that he has at least reviewed some sensitive compartmented intelligence programs, many of which are highly classified. One person said every time he hits a roadblock, he just calls the president. Oh my gosh, I want that job so badly. Kurt, call me. Can we live stream it? Could you imagine? He's like got the best job at the DOJ right now. The decision to provide some of the government's most sensitive spy material to Olsen is unusual, says Politico. He's a special government employee, and he has passed a background check and a polygraph, a man of integrity. And they're freaked. He has no background. He has no intelligence. He knows what you did. That's the problem for you. So the New York Times is reporting this. It's going to heighten concerns that they're going to try to spin up the rigged election. They're all freaked out. Look at this article. Who wrote this article here? John Scout. I don't even know who that is. All right. So Politico, little bit nervous out there. And so we got reporting over from 11 Alive out in Fulton County. Here's what they're saying went down. And we got a little bit more fun imagery coming from inside, some more body cam stuff coming up. Here is what it looked like.
Today is the deadline for the Justice Department to unseal that search warrant affidavit for the FBI raid that went down at Fulton County's election hub. A federal judge ordered that it be unsealed by the end of today. Ariana Manish joining us from the Fulton County Government Center. Ariana, what are we learning so far as this deadline approaches?
Well, a federal judge gave the DOJ until the end of today to redact any information they needed to publicly release this search warrant affidavit, the affidavit that federal investigators used to justify that raid at the Fulton County Elections Hub. In the meantime, we are getting some other insight into what was happening during that raid through body cam footage. And in that video, you see FBI agents interacting with Fulton County election staff and police about the search warrant. You can also see the moment that Fulton County Commission Chairman Rob Pitts and the county's attorney entered the building right before that search warrant was about to get underway. And you can see how this was a surprise to county officials. In one exchange, a Fulton County police sergeant tells the county attorney he's confused after an agent says the warrant is being amended. Take a listen.
Confused on how they executed a search warrant that's not correct. And then are now waiting for it to be amended.
I mean, that's basically, that's all to argue about in court after.
Now, in a statement, the FBI Atlanta field office says that there was no confusion and that agents had a valid search warrant before they entered. They go on to say in a statement that the agency says that once they realized how large the building was and how many different groups used the facility, they went back to the judge to update the language to include a previously unknown secure area and make sure everything was clear. Meanwhile, that was also filed in that motion that allowed for the search warrant to be unsealed. The Fulton County commissioners, they also asked for those documents that were seized in that raid to be returned. The judge did not rule on that part of the motion, but Chairman Rob Pitts says that the county will continue to seek every legal avenue to get those documents back. Reporting live from Fulton County, I'm Mariana Manise for 11 Alive. Back to you.
Yeah, and we're looking to see who is the subject of all of this criminal investigation. Specifically, were they election workers? Were they investigators? Were they the auditors, the people who were recounting the votes? And how many of them can we arrest at once? Hopefully the number is large. We're going to keep our eye on this one. We are excited to see some developments, and it is seemingly the case that this will continue to progress. We may see a bunch of indictments or criminal complaints coming down the line, but Kurt Olsen, the man of the hour, bringing us some accountability for the 2020 election. We're going to keep our eye on this one. All right, my friends, what a beautiful and amazing day it is. We are carrying on because now we're talking about voter fraud in Minnesota. And so let's get right to it because we have another exclusive out of Minnesota. Voter fraud in Minnesota now coming to the forefront after a new report from Alpha News saying in an exclusive, they've got a conversation here with this woman called Representative Pam Altendorf, who in Minnesota demanded access to their voter records to see whether there was massive fraud happening there, saying she's being stonewalled and saying we need help in Minnesota. We're going to look at some of what she's uncovered here today and then see why they're so opposed to having any voter accountability, voter ID, making sure that citizens are actually voting. But the story is from Alpha News, and we got a summary of it over here from this fella called Drew Roach in Minnesota, asking, what is their Secretary of State hiding? Of course, we know Brad Raffensperger hid a bunch of stuff from us in Georgia, Shenna Bellows, we've got Jenna Griswold, we have Jocelyn Benson, we had Katie Hobbs, the Barbie bimbo in Arizona. Now we got Steve Simon. He's asking, as a Minnesota Republican, I got a duty to make sure that our elections are fair. But this guy, the secretary, is actively obstructing oversight. Back in November last year, his North Star notes, he explicitly is instructing auditors that providing the master voter list is optional. The guidance says your office may choose whether you can provide this stuff. It's called the master list. And now what's happening is that master list is being perverted as part of a cover-up. And this is what this woman is explaining to us here. We've got mounting concerns of voter fraud. Billions of dollars of fraud already uncovered. It's only money, though, for Leering centers. Of course, it's not elections that are fraudulent. This woman called Pam Altendorf, Republican. She represents the Red Wing area, serves as the vice chair of the Minnesota House Elections Committee. She hopped on this podcast with Liz Collin. We'll listen to a little bit of it. But the conversation went like this. She asked for records. And it came about after the DOJ was rejected. Remember, Harmeet Dillon is launching lawsuits all over the country saying, hey, you have an obligation to give us election records so that we can validate that you're following federal law. They refused to do that. So she went and asked for the data herself. We feel by state statute that I have access to this info. So that's what I did. I went and knocked on the door of 4 counties. And now we're seeing some interesting things happen. The secretary, in a directive, redefined what we call the master list. I want the voter list. He changed the list. The master list is the information of the voters that, we're holding in the counties, and that was redefined. And then it was specifically said to not give me certain information in the list. In other words, the secretary told the counties, don't give her the data. 3 counties did share some of it, but when she looked into Hennepin County, it consisted of 830,000 voter records. And what she found was surprising. She posted this top-level summary of just a few things I found on the Hennepin list, 1 county in Minnesota. 7,779 challenged voters, almost 3,000 voters with missing data, 79% voters are in check ID status, which is not a lot. 503 voters are 100 years or older. 21% of the voters in Ilhan Omar's district, 21.6% of them, are being challenged. 1/5 of the voters in Ilhan's district are being challenged, and much more. Voters are missing birth dates and everything. Minnesota media needs to report on these. They haven't done that. But in the 11 years as the Secretary of State, he gives this info to private companies called Eric, but refuses to allow the feds to look at it, refuses to allow local politicians to look at it. And so everybody needs to demand accountability up there. And more comes out here. In one precinct, it's called the P6 of Ward 2, there were so many challenged voters that it equates to 21% of the voters, just in one precinct. That is significantly higher than the state average or any other precinct. She also identified other concerns about voter info. Almost 3,000 have missing info. According to federal law, can't have that happen. She also says birth years, many people over 100 years old. They reached out to Minnesota and the Secretary of State. They said, well, you know, some of these are placeholders. Like some people don't have votes, their birth years in there. So we add in 1900 as a placeholder, but it's not fraud. But we do need to fix some of that. Many people are questioning the elections. Alpha News reached out for comment. They did not dispute her findings, but they say it's updated all the time. So we'll look into it. We're constantly enacting these safeguards. But now, of course, the secretary is not wanting to interface with the federal government. And what we're seeing are as many as 1/5 of the people being challenged. Polling place changes often result in increased challenges. That's why everything's being challenged. It's definitely not fraud. We know that's not true at all. So here are some of the notes that were coming out. Drew Roach shared this one. And in the secretary's notes, he said, this information is provided for purposes of administering absentee voting. Okay, so in other words, you're not going to get the full list. Absentee votes are not a part of the master list. And so you should not give anybody asking for any information, any of the absentee votes data, because that's where they're stealing elections. So, of course, Minnesota is riddled with fraud. Pam Altendorf said this was sent out by Steve Simon to all 87 Minnesota counties. He told them specifically, don't give her the data. He redefined the master list to exclude the absentee votes and all of the other things because they're in cover-up mode in Minnesota and Georgia and everywhere. Data is showing there are major problems here. Despite Secretary Simon's assertions that the voter rolls are clean, a review by Republicans on the Minnesota House Elections Operations Committee has uncovered significant problems. Ben Davis, a member of the committee, expressed serious concerns about the secretary's approach, criticizing the evasiveness of him as the cover-up continues. He pointed to an analysis of the records, saying the data we obtained clearly indicates widespread issues that call into question the reliability of voter information and potentially statewide. This conflict is going on because the DOJ is asking for access to their voter files. They're not giving it to them. Hennepin also provided its complete master list to Altendorf in Hennepin. Several red flags there that we've talked about, as many as 1/5 of the votes being challenged in certain locations. Now, Davis described these discoveries as alarming. There are vulnerabilities. And Hennepin is nearly 1/5 of Minnesota. So if they have these problems where 1/5 of the votes in 1/5 of the population of the state are so problematic, we need to undergo a comprehensive review, and they need some help. And we saw that from this exchange. Liz Collin sharing an exclusive saying, we need help in Minnesota. Voter integrity is a disaster. 3 counties provided partial data, but here are some of the findings that were shared on with Liz Collin. She's over on X under Alpha News. Here's what this exchange sounded like.
Thank you, Liz.
Yeah, there's been this ongoing battle over access to Minnesota's voter rolls. You know it well. The federal government now suing after Secretary of State Steve Simon has declined to provide the data unless a court orders it. But with all this in mind, as a Minnesota state legislator who, again, sits on the House Elections Committee, you requested, I know, voter data from 4 Minnesota counties. Seemed like a simple request a couple of months ago, but explain then what happened next.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Yeah, this came to fruition after they denied the request from the DOJ. And in my position of being the vice chair of the Elections Committee, we feel by state statute that I had access to that information. And wanted to just try it out. We tried 4 different counties to see if we could obtain that information. So I did do data requests to 4 counties.
And then I know after that request, Representative Altendorf, very shortly after, Secretary of State Steve Simon put out a memo.
Oh.
Yeah, that's right. So a couple days after the data request went out, obviously the counties told the Secretary of State's office that I was requesting this information, and he did put out a directive. And then in that directive, he redefined what we call the master list. The master list is the information of the voters that, we're holding in the counties. And that was redefined. And then it was specifically said to not give me certain information in the active voter list. He told the counties not to do that.
So I guess despite these roadblocks, you ultimately obtained voter registration data in Hennepin County. Just to be clear, you've only shared your analysis, not the actual data, with us ahead of this interview. But even just your high-level analysis here, there is a lot to look at. Your analysis is based on about 830,000 records from Hennepin County, which accounts for 20% of all of voters in Minnesota. What stood out to you the most?
Yeah, and to be perfectly clear, we did assume that after finding out that the Secretary of State put out a directive that the counties would comply with that, and none of the counties that I had put in this request that they would actually, hand over that voter information. But it was, to our surprise, Hennepin County, they asked for my badge to make sure, that I am who I am, that I'm a vice chair on the elections committee. I'm a government official. And I'm assuming the person that was in that data request office looked at the information, looked at the law, and did decide that I was able to receive that information. So we received the Hennepin County, the active voter list on January 5th. And since then, I have that information in my office, and we've been looking at that information. And we do have a lot of concerns just looking from a very, surface level.
In particular, I know you wanted to speak about the votes in one specific precinct in Minneapolis that stood out as perhaps being problematic.
Yeah, that's right. So one Minneapolis precinct, it's P6 of Ward 2. There was so many challenged voters that it equates to 21.6% of the voters just in this one precinct are challenged. So, and that is significantly higher than the state average or in any other precinct that we're seeing. I mean, I think people can see that that would be a real problem to have that many being challenged.
Yeah, that's a pretty big number. 1/5 of the votes being challenged seems like that is a high level. But we know that there's fraud all over the place over there. The Persistence, Scott Pressler, shared this post saying that, remember in Minnesota, you're allowed to vouch for people. You can bring in 8 other people and say they live with me, and so they're here to vote. Well, here's an unlimited number that's allowed if you're in a residential facility. If you're not in a residential facility, then you can only vouch for a maximum of 8 registrants living with you. And you can do that the day of the election. So, of course, Byron Donald said, in Minnesota, 1 registered voter can vouch for up to 8 persons without an ID. This is absurd, obviously. It's time to end the fraud. It's time for election integrity. It's time to pass the Save America Act because we want our elections not to be fraudulent. But here's more fraud happening in Minnesota. You can see this was an interesting report from ABC5 saying that there's a concept called fraud tourism taking place in America, where people will travel over from Pennsylvania to get in on the grift.
This is the case involving the 2 men from Philadelphia who heard it was easy to rip off taxpayers here in Minnesota. Federal prosecutors have called this case fraud tourism, saying the men traveled here to steal from the now defunct Medicaid program.
Perfect.
Today, they traveled back here to face the consequences, and I had the chance to ask them about it. They called it fraud tourism. You want to respond to that, sir?
Tell them.
Why Minnesota, Mr. Brown?
He's got no comment today, okay?
Anything you want to say to taxpayers here? That's Lester Brown and Anthony Jefferson, both from Philly. They admitted in court today to setting up businesses in the housing stabilization program here in Minnesota. We learned today the men used ChatGPT to draft fake client notes and use them to submit inflated bills for reimbursement.
AI.
Prosecutors say instead of helping people find stable housing, they stole more than $3.5 million from the program that shut down late last year.
Wow, man, it's good if you can get it. And you can't get it anymore thanks to the new administration. But it was going on for a long time. And right next door in Michigan, we had a very interesting decision from a judge. You can see this judge is a foreign-born judge, as usual. But she was appointed by President Trump. So even squeeze this one by him. But she was born in Iraq. Yep, in 1971. Tel Kaif. And she has now just decided that the HAVA federal law and the NVRA federal law don't apply. And so Harmeet Dillon loses and she cannot go get any election records at all. She issued a 23-page opinion out of Michigan. This is another Secretary of State who's as fraudulent as they come, called Jocelyn Benson, who tries to change the rules and waive signature requirements and is an election rigger through and through. She was being sued by Harmeet, saying, you got to give us your files because you are under obligation to comply with federal law like everybody else is. And she said, no, put out this ridiculous decision. It's very obnoxious. Let me show you some of the highlights, though, in it. Harmeet and the Civil Rights Division suing, saying, we want voter records. Michigan, like many other states, maintains a list of every person registered to vote. And so the DOJ came in and they sought access to these records under HAVA and NVRA, as you can see here. They said, we need to know whether you're complying with federal law. They want everything, full name, date of birth, all the things. Michigan said, no, that's too sensitive. And so the judge agreed. And let me show you what her rationale was. It's a kind of a boring decision. She spends a lot of time talking about the mechanics of the case. And let me just fast forward. I marked a couple places to share with you. Here, she says, one might say that the process used to manage voter registration lists is related to the list and related to the process. So in other words, the process is about the list, but the list is not about the process. You can see what we're talking about. It's like insane. Thus, whether the list is a record concerning the process is depending upon how you define concerning and how you define relating to and how you define about and blah, blah, blah. Basically, what she's saying is the law allows the DOJ to get records about the process of maintaining the voter rolls, but not about the actual voter rolls themselves. So you can ask them for copies of their manuals. What do you do? How do you check your systems and kind of monitor the administrative side, but you can't actually get the list? Get information about how they manage the list, but not about the list itself. So she spends a lot of time. You can see it's like pulling teeth. It's a to and or about related to the process concerning, and she's just picking words and then redefining them in a way that serves her argument. She says a natural reading of this says that it requires states to disclose information about the process by which they maintain their registration, but not the list itself. Okay, you can't get the list. That's what Congress literally wrote in their statutes. She says, perhaps this seems odd because it's wrong, but this oddity disappears when one considers that state voter registration lists were already subject to public disclosure law when the NVRA was enacted. And so there is no need for the NVRA to mandate the disclosure of the files. So she doesn't grant this at all. She says that the DOJ loses and she dismisses the case. And of course, she was born in Iraq. So HAVA, the NVRA, and the CRA do not allow the United States to get these records. And so the court grants their motion to dismiss. I'm very sure that Harmeet and the DOJ will not let this lie, and this won't be the end of it. But as it stands, no records from Michigan, which is corrupt and fraudulent and rigged because Jocelyn Benson is the Secretary of State over there. Now, while all this was going on, we had hearings about another type of fraud, which is sanctuary city fraud, which is happening in Minnesota and Michigan and elsewhere. And today there was an exchange where Todd Lyons, the acting ICE director, was in front of Congress duking it out with Bang Bang Swalwell, who, as we talked about this morning on the members only stream, is being sued. Evidently, he doesn't even live in California, and he wants to be the governor there. So here's what Todd Lyons had to say in this exchange.
Supposed to protect, or will you side with the killers bringing terror to our streets? Mr. Lyons, will you resign from ICE?
No, sir, I won't.
Why not?
Because, sir, that child that you're showing right there, the men and women of ICE took care of him when his father abandoned him and ran from law enforcement.
Time has expired.
You never should have gone
Gentleman's time has expired. I recognize the gentleman from Mississippi.
Yeah, maybe talk to that father who dropped his kid off like a bag of dirt on the side of a frozen Minnesota roadway. But there's more. Rep. LaMonica, Body Slam LaMonica, was also out, and she had to get scolded in violation of House rules.
Let me ask you some questions that you may be able to answer. Mr. Lyons, do you consider yourself a religious man?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, yes. Okay, well, how do you think Judgment Day will work for you with so much blood on your hands?
I'm not going to entertain that question.
Oh, okay, of course not. Do you think you're going to hell, Mr. Lyons?
I'm not going to entertain.
Of course not. How many government
The gentlelady will
agencies-
suspend. The
How many-
gentlelady will suspend.
Chairman?
A gentlelady will suspend. As I said, the issues we're debating here are important to ones that members feel deeply about.
Thank you,
While
Chairman.
vigorous disagreement is part of the legislative process, members are reminded that we must adhere to established standards of decorum and debate.
Nasty.
The witnesses are here voluntarily, and I will continue to remind members that while oversight is important, aggressively attacking those witnesses personally is inappropriate and not in keeping with the traditions of our committee.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just asking a question. You guys are always talking about religion here in the Bible. I mean, it's okay for me to ask a question, right?
It's called ask. Ask is the word. A-S-K. Not ax. Moron, Congresswoman. So we also then see Mark Harris was out today. Shout out to Representative Mark Harris from North Carolina. An ID is required to drive a car, to board a plane, to cash a check. And yet an ID is not required to do the most basic function of a republic, which is to vote. And so LaMonica and others who are against any type of territorial integrity, they want illegal aliens here doing whatever they want, siphoning off money and voting in our elections and having babies to change the culture and change the whole structure of the country. Now we got Mark Harris explaining we at least want some IDs on this.
America, you can't drive a car, board a plane, buy fireworks without an ID proving you are who you say you are. So why folks are allowed to vote to decide the future of this country without proving that they are a citizen first? Mr. Speaker, I rise today in honor of the House passing the SAVE Act just moments ago. It's common sense that only American citizens should be able to vote in American elections. Congressman Chip Roy's SAVE Act will close election loopholes by ensuring that every state requires voters to provide proof of citizenship before registering to vote. When non-citizens go to the ballot box, the electoral system is compromised and American votes are diluted. The American people have the right to determine the future of our country, and we refuse to be disenfranchised by illegal votes. I was proud to support the SAVE Act when it passed the House today. And Mr. Speaker, I yield back my time.
All right. Now, one person who is a Republican is not supporting the SAVE Act. Any guess to who it is? Dun, 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 dun. Murkowski, Lisa from Alaska, one of the worst, saying, I'm not going to be supporting the SAVE Act. She posted on X about it. She said, you know, when Democrats attempted to advance sweeping election reform, Republicans were unanimous in opposition because it would have federalized elections, meaning it would have allowed illegal aliens to vote all over the place. So now I'm seeing proposals like the SAVE Act and MEGA, which would effectively do that. And I don't support it because Lisa wants illegal aliens to continue to vote in our election. She says it's not going to work in Alaska. I don't even know if they have any illegal aliens up there. It's too cold. But John Thune also essentially punting on this. You can see they really don't want to pass this. They're happy to have fraudulent, rigged elections because it helps them stop people like Trump from winning until he wins. But here's Thune today.
The enormous difficulty of doing that. In fact, the big majority has not been able to.
Right. Well, you know, I guess, and I would just remind people that the coin in the realm in the Senate is floor time. There's a finite amount of it, and we have a lot of things we have to do. There's a housing bill that's awaiting action, hopefully a market structure bill, possibly permitting reform.
Lots of bills coming through. He needs to get going. There's one bill that actually matters. And here's another foreign invader, I think, who can't even speak English. I don't know if he's going to axe anybody either. But he was there saying that to the CBP commissioner, you better get pardoned because you're going to be held accountable. And we have a bunch of squishy, weak Republicans who are just sitting around while the Democrats are literally threatening to send our people to hell and to put them in prison. Wake up!
Well, you better hope so. You better hope you get been pardoned, because you will be held accountable for the absolute disregard of the law your agencies have shown over the past year. Your agencies have lost the trust
turn the page.
Of the American people, with millions taking to the streets to protect the illegal actions of your agencies. And that's why I introduced a bill in the United States Congress to abolish ICE. ICE must be abolished.
We need to denaturalize and deport, okay? This is our effing city. This is our effing country. Dude can't even speak English and he's impeaching everybody. But Barrasso was out in the Senate and he's explaining the standard operation and the playbook from the Dems. Democrats plan to turn sanctuary locations into political payday. It's all related. They step one, prohibit immigration enforcement near sensitive locations like polling places. Then step two, they make illegal immigrants feel comfortable at the polls. And then three, make it easier for them to vote, all part of the plan. Here's Barrasso in the Senate.
I just heard the minority leader come to the floor and speak about his ballooning list of demands that are designed to protect illegal immigrant criminals.
Yep.
That's what this is about. This is the discussion right now on the floor of the United States Senate. Democrats have come up with a Christmas list of demands designed to appeal to their radical base. This growing list of Democrat demands makes it almost impossible to remove dangerous illegal immigrants from the streets of our nation. Democrats are resisting even the most reasonable attempts to enforce our immigration laws. They don't want us, law enforcement, to enforce the immigration laws of this nation. That's what they are for, getting rid of those laws. The more we learn about the demands coming from the minority leader in that party, the less the normal American citizen likes them. And that's especially if you're concerned about any safety or any security in the community in which you live, or the neighborhood or the streets of your community. The Democrats continually want to make it harder to arrest and remove illegal immigrant criminals. So last week I spoke about the one Democrat's dangerous demand for requiring something called judicial warrants. Now, it may sound like a technical change. It is not. It is a dramatic change, and it would grind immigration enforcement to a halt. You know what it would do? It would lock in place the chaos that Joe Biden and the Democrats foisted upon this country with their wide-open border policy.
They want to put handcuffs and shackles on ICE so that they have to go to Article 3 judges every time they want to arrest an illegal alien. And of course, we know what these Article 3 judges will do. They'll never approve them because they love illegal aliens. Now, here's more from Congressman Russell Fry saying the SAVE Act needs to be taken up immediately in the Senate. If a senator like Murkowski wants to block voter ID and citizenship, they should explain why. We are proud to stand with the American people. Luna and others sending this letter over to the Senate. They say, listen, punks, we're writing to make our position unmistakably clear. The U.S. Senate must invoke the standing filibuster and vote on the SAVE Act. The American people want it. We're not confused. It's obvious you need to register to vote and have proof of citizenship to do it. It's not extreme. It's not even partisan. Everyone wants it. And so if senators want to block a bill, they should do it openly on the Senate floor. Make Murkowski get off her butt and go down there and explain why she wants no voter ID. A standing talking filibuster does not eliminate debate. It demands it. It requires those who oppose this come before the country and explain themselves if they can. Eric Schmidt was also out, Senator. saying we're not entertaining the Democrats' ridiculous proposals to kneecap our ICE agents and to prevent these deportations. If they want to talk immigration enforcement, that's great. Let's do it. But let's end the sanctuary cities. Let's support the ICE agents, and let's increase penalties for illegal entry and defund all the NGOs who love this grift.
Immigration, great. So Democrats want to talk about illegal immigration, great. We can talk about it all day long, every day. That's why I've put forth the Protect America Act that would end sanctuary cities, increase penalties for illegal entry and reentry, increase penalties for assaulting ICE officers, and getting rid of these NGOs that are fueling a lot of the violence that we see on the streets. That's my counterproposal. That's the counterproposal, I think, of conservatives in this Congress. So we're not interested in entertaining these ridiculous ideas the Democrats have. We're not doing it. If you want to do something, let's strengthen our immigration laws. But if they want to, look, if they want to shut down TSA, and if they want to shut down FEMA, that's on them.
They may do that. Yeah, they may do that. We're perfectly fine with that. There can be no more sanctuary. John Kennedy says our immigration laws are not second-tier laws. They matter as much as any other law that Congress passed. There should be consequences when people break them, including for mayors and governors and all the people complicit in the fraud. Here's Kennedy.
You don't have to be Einstein's cousin.
It's true.
You don't have to be a senior at Caltech to know that illegal immigration is illegal.
Yes.
Duh.
Duh.
It's illegal. And those of us who believe that no one is above the law, we all say we believe that. I believe it. No one, those of us who say that no one is above the law have to concede that people in our country illegally are not above the law either.
Pretty obvious.
The law applies to them as well. Our immigration statutes are not second-tier laws. They matter just as much as the other statutes that have been passed by the elected members of Congress. And just like the other laws, the immigration laws have consequences and should have consequences if you violate them. Now, so I guess what I'm saying, Mr. President, is I support enforcement of our immigration laws.
Me too.
Now, how you enforce those laws matters.
Mass deportations.
Those laws, like all laws, have to be enforced in accordance with due process.
They got it.
Those immigration statutes, like all laws, have to be enforced in accordance with equal protection.
Yeah, they got all of it.
Those laws have to be enforced in accordance with a well-known Supreme Court case, 1968, called Terry v. Ohio.
Oh, yeah, they're definitely doing that too.
Standards. Reasonable suspicion is the standard chosen by the Supreme Court.
Yeah, pretty easy.
By which someone can be stopped and questioned.
That's the Terry
when a
stop
law
case.
enforcement official doesn't
stop
have
and frisk and all that.
Terry v. Ohio has to be followed.
Mm-hmm. It is. Yeah, it is. It's all being followed. And we have judges who are demanding that they get actual extra protections. Due process premium edition, courtesy of our federal judiciary, to the benefit of illegal aliens, such that they get privileges and immunities that would never be afforded or provided to American citizens, because they're better than us, according to our officials in charge. But we know that's not the truth, and we know that there is fraud rampant across Minnesota. Alpha News with the new exclusive saying that they're trying to get their hands on voter records. They need some help there from Harmeet. In Michigan, they're rejecting the lawsuit, and we'll see what the DOJ says in response. We know that they know that their lists are fraudulent, and they don't want to give them up, because if they do, that's the game. They want to maintain power. They cannot do that fraudulently. And so we're going to keep our eye on this one, my friends. Thank you for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, what a beautiful stream it's been. If you're just joining us, quick recap on what we talked about. Boy, we had some fun today. Unsealing the search warrant that came out after the Fulton County raid. Spent some good time on that. Looked at some of the ballots and all of the evidence that they have that justified a federal judge signing off saying plenty of probable cause, go get the documents. And so that was a great read. I think there's going to be a lot more coming on this. We know Kurt Olsen is the man in charge who got the referral. And apparently he's got a direct line to the president. He's also getting some intelligence briefings from the intel community. And we know there's a lot more there as well. Then we checked out what's going on in Fannyland and got some updates in Minnesota. Talked about this new representative who's now blowing the whistle on some of the cover-up that's happening. Pam Altendorf saying as many as 1/5 of voters in a major precinct are being challenged because it's riddled with fraud. Bunch of different reports on that. They're trying to get their hands on more materials. Byron Donalds, we've got fraudsters shown up. We talked about Jocelyn Benson, foreign-born judges who are now saying the federal government can't access the list at all. You can only access information about the process of generating the list, not the actual list itself. Then Bang Bang Swalwell got told by Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons, Democrats are now axing people multiple times on the floor. And then they've also got these other individuals who can't even speak English who are now saying that they're going to put other people in jail as soon as they get power. And the Republicans are just like twiddling their thumbs, not doing anything. And Barrasso is out. Eric Schmidt was here. We had more from John Kennedy. And now, my friends, it's time to hear from you and to see what you say about all of this. Thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing to our channel if you haven't already done that. And thanks for becoming a member, too. We have great members-only streams in the morning. We were live this morning. We had 2 good segments this morning. What did we talk about? Bang Bang Swalwell's getting sued. Oh, and the appeal. We had a good one this morning. The appeal of Letitia James and the Comey case. That got submitted today in the 4th Circuit. We talked about that this morning on the member stream. So grab that. Otherwise, those segments will be out later. And thanks for supporting our show. Thanks for supporting our work. We couldn't do it without you. Like Tim Burchett says, thank y'all for sending me here. We appreciate it. But now let's hear from you. Thank you for being here. Happy Tuesday. It's going to be a jamming week. Hopefully we get some more delicious unsealings. You know how much we love those. But who is joining us on the day? Let's queue up some of our super chats in the house and get these things nice and situated over here. And dun 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 dun. We've got hey friends on YouTube, thank you for these. Let's see what we got here. Hey, Corrections in the house. Welcome aboard. Let me see if I can pop this puppy out over here. We got Corrections in the house. And what did I do? Let me cue this screen up over here. Boom. We got some super chats, and I want to be able to share these on the screen. So let me get this nice and situated over here. Go back to this tab. Beep, bop, boop. Got a couple in the house. What's up? Corrections 101. Good to see you, Corrections. Hey, welcome aboard. Corrections just became our newest membo, newest supporter. Grab the stream from this morning. We had a good one. One old guy says, not all idiots are liars, but all liars are idiots. If Fanny is a liar, what does that make her? Yeah, that's a complicated one. It sounds like a riddle. I'll have to noodle on that one overnight. Fanny, I think, is a liar and an idiot and a fraudster also, like intentionally criminal. And she's just roaming around free around the hills of Fulton County. Liberty Vet, what's up? 808,000 registered voters. Liberty Vet says for the November 2020 presidential election in Fulton County. 859,000 registered voters for the Senate runoff in January 2021. Well, did more people register in that, 2-3 month period? Yeah, I mean, they rigged it, stole it from Trump. Then they shoved in 2 fraudulent senators also, Ossoff and Warnock. Just incredible. Thank you, Liberty Vet. Shout out to our vets out there, man. We appreciate you guys. Liberty Vet, thank you for that. Nice to see you. Dark Servient, what's up? Dark Savariant in the house. Hey, thanks for being here. Thank you, Dark Savariant. I feel that way about you. We appreciate you. Thank you, Dark. Off-Label Pod says, there's no doubt the 2020 election was stolen completely. Obviously stolen. Joe Biden was an invalid person who did no campaigning at all. You're the only check on government was taken. Your only check on government was taken. 18 U.S. Code 2381 applies here in multiple ways. Man, and I was going to try to pretend like I know what that statute is off the top of my head, but I'd have to look it up. So good to see you, Off Label. Off Label Podcast right next door. Make sure you're giving them a follow, checking out their show. They're going to have a great stream. I think tonight, you said. A bunch of congressional hearings that they'll be talking about. Hey, Columbus Pixel Hacker. As a Georgia resident, I clearly remember that Jon Ossoff did not get more votes than Perdue, but when it went to the runoff, he won there. He needs to be looked at as well. Yeah, and Ossoff is freaked too. He is talking a lot about this case. They're all, oh, election integrity, Georgia election stuff. I think he realizes that, yeah, his entire Senate seat might have been invalidly gifted to him as a result of the fraud. Thank you, Columbus Pixel Hacker. Number one in the chat, Columbus Pixel Hacker. Thank you for that. Great to see you. Thank you for the nice dono and for being here. Jason on Blast, man, given and gifting 10 new membos into our new community. Man, Jason, thank you for doing that. Welcome to 10 new membo friends. Grab the stream from this morning. We talked Eric Swalwell is getting sued and an attempt to disqualify him from the California governor's race because apparently he doesn't even have a residence in California at all, which you need if you're going to be the governor. And then we talked about the other one was the appeal. Letitia James and Comey, their dismissals now being appealed. Good segments this morning. Jason on Blast, what's going on? Thank you for bringing 10 new friends in. Diane, may God save the USA. Rob, call Thune live. Pass the SAVE Act. Call We Can After. That would be, that would be fun. I could get set up here. We could just call Congress people all day. Yeah, this is Rob again. Yeah, we have our whole chat here with us here. We all want the SAVE Act passed. They'll say, well, we don't really care. Are you guys illegal aliens? No, we're not. We're citizens. Click. Thank you, Diane. Hey, Commander Wilson. Thank you for the nice dono, Commander. After 30 years in over 1,200 carrier landings, I fear nothing. That's pretty damn awesome, brother. 1,200 carrier landings? You're like a fighter pilot? I fear nothing. What the F is going on? I leave the country for 39 seconds. This is what I get. We have a trifecta here. Have we even a chance during the midterms? I mean, honestly, I don't want a black pill, but like, why would people run out enthusiastically to support the Republican Party? In Congress, like why? Who? There's a couple of them who are amazing, doing good stuff, but like as a party, where's the energy? They don't have it. They're just sitting there letting Democrats say that they're going to put our people in jail and that they're going to burn in hell. Do we have even a chance? Well, we're going to keep the pressure up. We're going to win the midterms. I know Trump is positive about the midterms. We're going to will it into existence, into the ether. Well, at least I'm getting paid this week. What a mess from Commander Wilson. We do have a trifecta. We were screaming about that this morning, Commander Wilson. It's like, what are they doing? Do they think it's going to get better when the Democrats are impeaching everybody? They need to wake up, man. They need to wake up. I don't know what it's going to take. Thank you, Commander, for the nice dono. And Bruce, thank you for this one also. It says, can the Fulton County official be subpoenaed to reveal the DOJ leaker? Oh. I think you're talking maybe about Rob Pitts. And I don't think you can force him to reveal that. But maybe you could subpoena, some records. Like, yeah, we want to find the leaker. So I'm sure there's an internal investigation already going on. But you're saying, can you go subpoena like Rob Pitts and say who was on the phone call? Is that what you're asking about? Or, because there was another leak today that we were talking about. Oh, the leak with Kurt Olsen and the people leaking to Politico from inside the intelligence community. Like I think internally the DOJ can go and address leaks, but I think the recipient of the leaks, unless they're receiving classified information or something like that, I'm not sure there's much you can do to them. And they would just invoke the Fifth. Maybe you could subpoena their search, like pull a Jack Smith, go get Rob Pitt's cell phone records and see who called him. Be one way to go. Bruce, thank you for that. But otherwise, yeah, it's kind of hard, I think, to force people to reveal their sources. As a general rule, But yeah, so it's a great question. We got to identify those leakers big time. And of course, in Fulton, did the leaker give them foreknowledge such that they did something to the ballots and covered up the evidence of their crimes? I don't know. Sev Russ says, if you're thinking about Fanny, you might as well watch Monty Python. Because of Nathan's hot dog? What is this about? So since I have not watched Monty Python, and since I never, ever, ever will watch Monty Python, I probably don't get the reference. Is Big Fanny in Monty Python? I mean, if Big Fanny was in there, I might have to watch it, but I'm pretty sure she's not in there. She's the biggest Fanny in Georgia, not the biggest Fanny in English comedies. Thank you for that, Sev Russ, man. We appreciate that. Very nice to have you here and have you in the house. And let's see, we got some locals comments as well. Let's see if we got any locals donos. And then we'll check on X, and then we'll wrap it up on the day, my friends. Of course, we will be back tomorrow for all the things and all of the fun. We hope to see you here. Hey! Way, Spuds, I ran into Nancy Knox Bierman, who used to be a big part of our community, no longer is, I understand. She says hello to everyone, gave her the news of you and Alexis being pregnant. It's true, we got a baby coming in July. And wish her the best. Man, we love Knox Bierman. And I know, sometimes people join our community and then there's some, drama. And it's, not the best fit on certain topics and things. I get it. So I know she's not been around in a while. We miss you, Knox. Hopefully you come back at some point. Spuds, thanks for saying hello to Knox. Hey, Corn Dog Antihero says the purpose of the Republican Party is to stop any nationalist movement and policies and facilitate the Democrats implementing communism and overthrow the Constitution. I hope it's not. Republicans are enemies of the Republic, and they're worse than Democrats because they pretend to fight for you and then stab you in the back. It's time to be done with them and form something new. Yeah, Murkowski's a real disappointment. Susan Collins is running again in Maine. Who's the other squishy Republicans? Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins. There's another one in there who drives me nuts. I can't remember. Rick D, thank you. Wouldn't that data change happening in 2024 reset the statute of limitations time because it would be a continuation of the crime? Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, and that might actually be the commission of the crime, right? Don't know. But yeah, that might be when the crime occurred. So they're going to go investigate that. And again, like the evidence of the fraud from the election, I'm sure is there. But the cover-up might be more acute evidence. Like the cover-up might be the stuff that really stands out, which is why they're latching on to that. And that might be, the bigger crime than anything that happened back in 2020. I mean, the bigger crime obviously was the theft of the election, but the evidence of the crime. An election is like the fog of war, right? Like it's like a battle going off. And if you've ever done anything that's like a big group project, it's a mess. Millions of ballots and hundreds of people, and you expect it all to be organized. It's like organized chaos. So, sifting through that and finding evidence of a crime might be harder than watching somebody cover up the crime in the aftermath and busting them on that. Patty B, and we got to indict somebody because then somebody will spill their guts, spill the beans about everything. Hey, man, Patty B, so sorry to hear this. Prayers coming up today. My brother lost his battle to glioblastoma last Wednesday. Man, rest in peace to your brother, James L. Snape Jr. We miss you. May you rest in peace, hanging up there with our loved ones in heaven. No problems at all. Looking down at the rest of us down here, just kind of laughing. Oh, gosh, look at that life down there. Wait till they get up here. I appreciate everyone who prayed for him and our family. Patty B Photography. Lots of love coming your way. Sorry for your loss. Sending prayer and energy to you guys. Hopefully you heal up soon. And may your brother enjoy eternity in everlasting bliss. I don't know what this is. Rick D shared this one. Apparently, an 82-year-old grandma beat the crap out of some intruder and squirted shampoo in his eyes. Man, good for her. Shout out to this 82-year-old grandma. It's kind of a gruesome picture, so I'll just leave that one there. But man, beat the heck out of somebody. Man, shout out to our grannies. We love our grannies, especially our fighting grannies out there. We love you. So instead of freaking out about him getting intelligence briefings about the elections, maybe people should freak out about what top secret information the intelligence agencies have on what happened during the elections. Yeah. Yeah, well, I think part of the reason we're, I don't know, freaking out, I think the reason we're excited about it is because somebody's looking at it. And we have criminal search warrants that are now being executed, which should have been executed a long time ago. But of course, the Biden people would never do that. So we're getting some progress. Tulsi Gabbard is there. Kurt Olsen's on the case. We like it. If we had a real opposition party, the Democrats, the Senate would pass a resolution barring the 2 senators from Georgia. Yeah, I agree. From voting on legislation until the investigation into 2020 was completed. Yeah, we looked it up. We read the part of the Constitution that says you don't have to accept fraudulent people into your House or your Senate. But they can't even impeach the judges. The judges spied on a handful of senators. They can't even do anything about it. It's honestly the most pathetic thing you've ever seen. Rubos, hey, warfare prayer for Ben to Sadaka's husband. Too long to be posted here. Posted in the comments. Man, shout out to the Rubos. Thank you, Rubos, for that. Too long to be posted here. We'll read it. Tobo, when I used to go vote, I'd make a joke that it's much better than waging a war to determine leaders. These days, it seems like there is a covert war over how to register voters, how to count the votes, how to lie about results. Election rigging is treason. Yeah. I mean, like the idea that we're all just going to go out and vote. Everybody's just going to play a fair game. Is like the most votes wins. That's it. No funny business. It's rigged. The whole system is rigged. And we're learning about now billions and maybe trillions that have been siphoned from us to pay for them and to support them. Think about USAID and all the things. Hey, Rick D, happy birthday, National Guard Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf. Pray for your complete recovery every day. Prayers up for Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf, National Guard. Happy birthday, man. So recovery and a birthday. Shout out, man. Shout out to our National Guard and our servicemen, men and women. We appreciate you guys. Londo, you have to kill the snakes in the yard before you go shop for a puppy. Yeah, it makes sense. So that your puppy doesn't get eaten by a python called Monty. That is why we need to vote. Hanging Trump out to dry is just doubly stupid. Yeah, like I agree with that. I mean, there's a lot of people who are ready to just abandon ship. I get the sentiment, but to me, it feels like a rage quit. It's just like rage quitting and like exiting the system. I get it's not perfect, believe me. But if you're not playing, then you lose by default and they win and you become a slave. So what is the alternative? Dan, there wouldn't be any privacy rights for who gave the inside story regarding the FBI actions along with the DOJ. Yeah, but that's a source side investigation, right? That's what I was talking about. So from the source, go after the source, yeah. But the recipient, in this case, Rob Pitts, can you get a subpoena to force him to disclose something? I have my doubts about that. Dan, thank you for the dono. And my friends, thank you for sending those in. Thank you for supporting our work and sending in some love. We appreciate it. And we got a couple other comments. Sergeant Bob says, FYI, back in the Hoover years, having a law degree or accounting degree was a requirement to be an FBI agent. Yeah, and so the argument is from them that a lot of these FBI agents or a lot of the HSI people, they're doing this a lot with ICE agents. They're brand new. They got like 3 weeks of training and now they're out there doing these things. No. They put this FBI dude on there who is around since 2020 and a lawyer. So he's like, meticulous, and he's got that in his bag of credentials. So they say, oh, he's just a fraudulent hack. It's like, no. He used to practice law. He understands the law. Now he's an FBI agent, so he's got tons of credibility, the right guy you want to write the affidavit. Since then, there has been a loosening. Police experience was welcome, as were other areas. Not even sure what the criteria are today. Well, I don't know. Under Biden's FBI, we saw a lot of, extra large FBI agents too. Daryl, what's up? Daryl Bryan says the election judges who did not sign the machine tabs should be interviewed. How can all the tabs be unsigned if there was no conspiracy? Yeah, who's in charge for that? Like, isn't there a guy whose job that is assigned? Nadine Williams runs the elections over here, and this guy does this, and this guy does this. Who's responsible? No one? Nobody got assigned that job? It's like, all right, somebody didn't validate it. So we got to find out who was in the chain of custody that was the bad apple and bust them. The Rubos are here. Prayers up. This is called a warfare prayer. It's for Ben, who is Tsadaka's husband, who we talked about last week. Prayers up. Not by my own might, nor by my own power, but by the Spirit of the Lord. I come against cancer. I come against every form and every stage of cancer, and apply this to someone in your life if they need this healing energy. I especially come against non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, Sézary syndrome, and chronic pain that are attacking Ben's body, attacking his hematological system, blood, nervous system, nerve cells, myelin sheathing around the nerves, his organs, their functions, and his skin. I have the keys to the kingdom of heaven, and I use them now to bind every spirit that has come to eat up Ben's flesh. I especially bind, rebuke, and cast out any and all spirits causing non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, Sézary syndrome, and chronic pain that is attacking Ben's body. I declare you have no place in Ben's body, you have no power over Ben's body, and you are defeated hosts. And I command you to come out and leave Ben now. Father, fill every void with your presence, your miracle-working power, your peace, love, healing, strength, restoration, and comfort where these spirits and cancer have come out. Thank you, Jehovah Rapha. We give you all the glory, the honor, and the praise. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen. From the Rubos. Powerful prayer for our friend Ben. Tsadaka, hope you're out there. Hope you guys are doing well. We love you guys. The Veil. This is, in my opinion, of what should and must be done at the state level of elected officials. If these Congress people are going to challenge the Constitution and demand that illegals are allowed to come in here as regular citizens, then they need to take a competency test about the Constitution. They'd all fail. Their staffers are not allowed to help with their test. Could you imagine giving Monica Axe MacGyver a test on the Constitution? She can't even spell a three-letter word. If the Supreme Court finds criminal intent to destroy the Constitution, then the Supreme Court can rule on the punishment if they're trying to wreck our country. Yeah, maybe they should go to jail. Thank you, The Veil, for that one and for the great comment. Very nice to see you. And Donut. Oh, Donut's here. Don't forget the Rumble chats. Older ones should be at the top of the chat feed if you have it open. Oh, I didn't see you guys. I didn't see you guys. Are you guys clipping? Dan, the election judges for each precinct is responsible. He runs the show and can have police to arrest those who impact the polling place. From Dan over there in Georgia. Amazing. Okay, so yes, we do have a couple donos. Bruce, thank you for that. Rick D. Sev Russ, nice to see you. Bagel Boy on Rumble. Tom Tillis is another chill senator. Shill senator. Yeah, I was going to say chill senator. Is that what you think? Shill. Tom Tillis is terrible. He's not going to be there any longer. He's like Mr. NSA, Mr. Illegal Alien. We're tired of it. Relantel. The side-by-side makes the donos hard to read. It does? You think so? Maybe I had it smaller. Maybe I had it a lot smaller, but I increased the size a little bit. So maybe you sent that in before. But I think that's pretty decent. I could even make it a little bigger. How about that? Oh, how about that, Relantel? Look at that. Look at that dono right there. Man, big and girthy right on our screen. Thank you, Relantel, for that. All right, my friends, it's been a beautiful day. Let's say hello to our friends on X. Then we'll call it. Of course, we're coming back tomorrow. We'll get into it again. It's going to be Wednesday already. Golly. Flying by. Are we live? Where's our live stream? Over here. Oh, I think here it is. No, that was yesterday. I don't even know where we're at. Are we on X right now? All right, X. I don't see our live feed for whatever reason. Maybe because I'm not that intelligent. I think we're live on X. Yeah, we are, but I don't find it. All right, anyways. All right, so my friends, shout out to our friends on X. Great to see you. And Rob and King of Biltong was on Rumble too. Thank you, King of Biltong. Sorry, I almost missed that. Rob says, in my state, we the poll workers witness and sign the zero prof and the final tapes before we seal documents and leave. And King of Biltong was also here. Man, thank you for clipping these for us, Donut, for making sure we don't miss anything. You are MVP. We appreciate it. King of Biltong. Do you need some healthy, high-protein snacks? Biltong is packed with B vitamins, iron, zinc, creatine, and more. Perfect for carnivore and keto diets if you happen to be on one. Go to BiltongUSA.com. Use code Robert. You'll save 10% off, and you're going to get some delicious and nutritious Biltong. Now, to be an FBI agent, you can be stupid and undegreed and a tech guy. Yeah, you can be really something. We've seen a lot of them. Rob, when you voted for Kari Lake, did you have to put your ballot in the alternative drawer to cast your vote because it wouldn't scan? Crooked Katie Hobbs. I'm pretty sure, no. I'm pretty sure for that election, I think I remember it explicitly. I think I made a video about it. Didn't I make a video about it? But I'm pretty sure I was downtown Phoenix, and I got a mail-in ballot, but I went and handed it in physically. So I just deposited it, basically. I didn't put it in a ballot. I'm pretty sure for that election I did that because we didn't have any day of problems. I was there the days before. So we were not there on election day. I had already voted. But I think I got the mail-in and then signed it, then hand-delivered it in downtown Phoenix. So I did not face any of the other like day of problems when everybody was being kicked out, essentially, if you remember that. Thank you, Rob, for the question. King of Biltong, thank you for that. Donut Mind Me, John, thank you for clipping for us on the day. Very nice of you to do that. We appreciate you. And Rick D, we saw that. Bruce Rice Baby. Yeah, all right, all right. I'm making sure we're not missing anything. But I think you guys were clipping this entire time, and they just showed up on my feed. I don't know what's going on. Anyways, we have the best mods. You guys rock. Thank you. We have the best mods. We got Donut Mind Me, John McGarvey in the house. We got Muffin Rando, keeping things nice and orderly around here. We got K Bean, Carrie B, holding the fort down. Neuro D, Janek, Dog Digger, Geegum Geegum, Elliot, and just Rhonda. All helping out around here, man. We have the best friends ever. And thank you, my friends, for also subscribing and liking the video on your way out. That way we don't miss you because we're coming back tomorrow. And we're going to get into it again. But we'll leave it there on the evening. It's been a beautiful stream. We're going to have a jamming week ahead, no doubt about it. And we're looking forward to it. So until we're back here tomorrow, my friends, I hope your evening is beautiful and peaceful and pleasant. You have a very nice rest and the sweetest of dreams you could possibly imagine, because we're coming back here tomorrow to get into it again. And in order to do that appropriately, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chatting line. Together we exposed corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers. Truth on our side. Watching the watchers. We won't be denied. Watching the watchers. Eyes open wide. Fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share. And bring a friend who's ready to care. Tomorrow's lies are just today's news, but here we see through